Hello, this is Randy. I am making a video describing the devaluation phase that lasted for several years with my ex-narcissist, covert, sex-addicted, antisocial predator. These are 3 books that I found helpful when I was in recovery, and I still am in recovery currently. Making these videos is actually part of my recovery. One thing I wanted to talk about is how when living with the predator, I was not allowed to have any feelings. Many of you will know what I mean when I tell you the victim spouse of a narcissist predator is not allowed to have their own feelings. Feelings particularly that I was not allowed to have was anger or worry or sadness. I was being harassed at one of my jobs for over a year by a woman, and I was being singled out, and she was making my life miserable at work. She was also a malignant narcissist. I realize that now. Anyway, I'd come home from work, and of course, it's all I could think about was, what was going on at work. So I would be in a bad mood after driving home an hour drive, being already sleep deprived from the predator waking me up at different times of the night and not allowing me to sleep a full 8 hours, because after all, he didn't need that much sleep, and so why should I need that much sleep? There was something wrong with me because I required 8 hours of sleep. But when I come home and try to talk to my husband about what had been going on at work, he would be somewhat interested, because he does like gossip, and he likes fascinating stories about other people's behaviors. That's what he was being fascinated about, was their behaviors and like the storytelling part of it. But as far as my feelings about it, no, he really didn't have anything to say about my feelings. And then the more I come home from work upset and miserable, hoping for comfort, he would get angry if I was upset. In other words, I was not allowed to be upset because it made him angry and disgusted. He didn't really say why. It was just that, I had a life and I had feelings that were outside of him, that didn't really involve him, and they were unpleasant feelings. And since he couldn't comfort me or wasn't interested, he felt that it was taking away from him. He wanted me to be happy. He didn't need to comfort me, but he expected me to be happy and energetic and not preoccupied with what was going on at work, because my attention should be on him. And especially when you're with a narcissist, and nothing should bother you, because you are graced with their presence, and you should just be happy to be with them. And he just couldn't understand why I would be upset that I was being harassed at work. There were times I would be worried also about my son. As kids are growing up, teenage years, they get in trouble. They do things that they're not supposed to do. You worry about their whereabouts. If you can't contact them, you worry about the things they're getting into. And that always made my predator very angry, because my son was taking up time, brain power, time in my brain where I'm thinking about him, and that was taking time away from thinking about the predator. Also, crying. When I would cry because of something the predator did or said, and I just couldn't take it anymore, the predator would get angry to see me crying, rather than a normal person that might comfort you or apologize. my crying made him mad, and he accused me of crocodile tears, that he doesn't believe when a woman cries. Crying was just fake in order for attention or to get what I wanted, and he learned that from his mother and from his first wife and from his children. So, of course, if I was crying, that it was fake. Excuses. When he was drinking a lot, which was really all the time, I rarely mentioned anything because I know enough that, you know, you cannot really help an alcoholic to stop drinking, and that it was not really worth talking about other than making some snide comments here and there. However, he would remind me that when we were first dating that I made him these really awesome Bloody Marys, that he got hooked on the Bloody Marys, he said, and that's the reason he still drank today, because I gave him those Bloody Marys one time, and that's what really got him hooked, and that's what caused him to become an alcoholic. So it was my fault that he was an alcoholic. His friends, now the narcissist doesn't have any real friends, but his friends are the oddest group of people. And I always wondered about it. Now I think I understand more. He makes friends with like schizophrenic people. One of his best buddies is like an old guy who's a paranoid schizophrenic. He's a hermit and he isolates, and my predator would go and visit him, even took him to the hospital. The predator wants to inherit this man's belongings and his building and his tools, and wanted to learn some skills that this paranoid schiz had. So that was his motive. But he was also fascinated by the paranoid schizophrenic, and it probably made him feel really good to be around somebody that was actually more psychotic than he was. He had another friend that was the uncle of his ex-wife that he would go visit. Again, a very odd man. I never met him, but he was a hermit, very isolative, seems to have some kind of mental illness. My predator also loves borderline personalities. They're very entertaining to him, and he likes to like screw around with their mind. And he really likes other alcoholics a lot. He's fascinated and entertained by them. And then he also loves criminals. Very fascinated, and likes to hang around with criminals. And then the last category of people that he enjoys is other people that he can victimize and use without them really catching on. And then they also do his bidding for him without even really knowing it. So the flying monkeys, which many of them are people in his family. The last little story I'm going to tell on this video is the one of a rage that I experienced with the narcissist when we were doing taxes. I had to urge him to sit down and let me do the taxes, and he had the information for his part of our taxes that we had to do together, and he kept putting it off and procrastinating, as they usually do. And I finally got him to sit down and, you know, figure out what his portion of the income was and minus what his expenses were. And he didn't want to do it. He kept saying that, you know, he was going to owe too much. He was going to owe too much taxes, and he's got to really whittle this down, his income, and, you know, find these receipts for this money he had spent so he doesn't have to pay such high taxes. And I said to him, I looked at the numbers, and they were really low numbers for a man who's in his mid-40s, and he's afraid of paying too much taxes. But, you know, the amount that he earned was like $14,000 that year. And I made the mistake of saying, you know, you didn't even make that much money. Why are you avoiding this? What are you afraid of paying on $14,000 in a year? He blew up that I said that he did not really make that much money. We had the facts and figures right in front of us. He was so grandiose in his mind that he thought that he made so much money and had to pay so many taxes. And even when seeing the figures right in his mind, he still felt that. And until I verbalized it, he became enraged at that point, because reality again was put in his face that he does not hardly make any money. That was a fact that he couldn't even accept. And that is just evidence of the psychotic, deranged individual that I was with for 16 years. Thanks for listening.